What I've got for you today is supposed to be an amazing game of StarCraft 2. It's time for a Terran versus Zerg, where we find ourselves on the map Gresven. Now, spawning here in the top left-hand corner, playing with the blue Zerg drones from Italy, we have Reynor. And his opponent in the opposite corner with the red Terran SCVs. He's from South Korea, and he goes by the name of Cure. Now, Cure has been impressing me a lot lately. He's been looking better than he ever has before, and honestly, he's always been a top-tier Terran from Korea. But right now, as of me making this video, according to Aligalek, he's currently the number 3 in the world overall. The only players ahead of him, just by a very small amount actually, are Maru and Serral. Well, Serral is quite a bit ahead of Maru, but at the very least, the distance from Cure to Maru is really something that Cure might be able to cross in the next couple of months. We'll have to keep an eye out on this man, because he is looking incredible. I think his Terran versus Protoss is currently best in the world, but of course his Terran versus Terran and his Terran versus Zerg are amazing as well. Cure has been very impressive as of late. That being said, while Reynor may have been in a little bit of a slump maybe half a year, maybe 9 months or so ago, I mean, it's honestly not entirely fair to even call it that. He was underperforming to his standards at the very least by just a small amount. He has been looking on point once again. Of course, he recently won Home Story Cup 23, looking incredibly dominant in that tournament. Just in general, the man doesn't really have any particular weaknesses, and he is incredibly fast. I noticed at Home Story Cup that he seems to be faster than ever before. Like, not just as far as APM goes, okay? Because APM can be inflated quite a bit, but just looking at him play on the keyboard, it's quick, man. He goes upwards of like 600 average actions per minute, which would be equivalent of about 10 buttons a second right now, which is absolutely ridiculous, but you can tell in person, you know? There's holding down buttons and appearing to have very fast actions per minute, and there's actually very fast gameplay. I've had the privilege of watching a lot of pro gamers play over the years, and both Reynor and Clem just keep impressing me. They are, I don't know, their left hand looks like a spider crawling over the keyboard very, very rapidly, but also very accurately, you know? Like, that's another thing that always strikes me. Sometimes you have to hit a hotkey that's like hotkey G or H or whatever, and like the fingers just, they just hit the right spot every single time. Anyways, let us see exactly what ends up going down right here with this very first Reaper harassment. This is, of course, the standard. Okay, well, that's sloppy. You definitely don't want to be losing a drone to a Reaper there. I think Reynor was trying to just keep that one around for as long as possible. He could have easily morphed into a Spore Crawler if he wanted to, but I think he was trying to play a little trick right there on Cure. One thing to note is that these two are, of course, on, well, pretty much opposite ends of the world. Not quite, but very far apart. So they will likely be playing this particular game on the North American server. This is also not good for Reynor. He may actually lose that Overlord. Okay, Reynor, it's time for you to tighten the belt a little bit, because this is all very sloppy. Losing that drone, and I think he's going to lose his Overlord as well. Alright, that is not the start you want to see. Generally speaking, so I have no excuse for this Overlord, okay? I have an excuse for the drone, though. Generally speaking, he gets the creep tumor too. My god, Cure. Cure is murdering Reynor here so far. Alright, generally speaking, if he gets another tumor, I'm gonna lose my mind. No way. Does he at least get the Reaper? No, he stuck around too and shot the Zergling. Okay, well, this is basically GG. In Reynor's mind, I can guarantee you that this is already game over. He's not gonna leave, of course. He's certainly not gonna give up. But the pro gamers, if you've ever talked to them, especially at Home Story Cup, whenever they're casting a game and they're sitting on the couch with the commentators, one of the pro gamers rather joins us. They would be calling GG right now. This is such a horrendous start right here for Zerg that you're actually very substantially behind. Losing a drone, losing an Overlord, losing 2 creep tumors really puts you in a very tricky position. Right, I was talking about ping. Basically, the games, when it's Europe versus Korea, they get played on the North American server. Both players have a pretty bad amount of ping. So, you know, there's a little bit of delay there, but that doesn't cause you to lose an Overlord like that. That Overlord was just simply mispositioned, and really the same can be said for the Queens. Maybe, yeah, Reynor was feeling a little desperate there. He's like, you know what, I need to catch up somewhere. I'll be a bit greedy, and I'll try to get as much value out of this as possible, and then you get carried away a bit. Now, luckily for him, he's gonna have some time to catch up, because this is not an opener where Cure is trying to win the game within the next couple of minutes. Cure has opened up with a quick triple command center, and now the additional barracks are going down, together with the double refinery right over here in the natural. Okay, so Cure playing a macro-focused game here on Gresven, which is really not all too surprising. I feel like every single Terran is more than happy to play a macro-oriented TVZ on this map. Usually it's going to be up to the Zerg player to, yeah, cause a little bit of, what do we call it? A little bit of speed, to add a little bit of pace to the matchup. Terrans over the last few months have gotten very comfortable playing the long, drawn-out macro games here, and we certainly don't get there every time because... Finally, revenge. Because a lot of Zergs will go for some sort of aggressive build, but because it is early game, yeah, I'm not entirely sure. If Reynor had something aggressive planned, not entirely sure if he's going to be able to pull that off. Now, one thing that he's building over here, though, is something we don't normally see. He rushed up a lair. That is really not too strange. Normally, though, I love the positioning, by the way, of that, right? I don't know if that's on purpose, but that is basically invisible. If a couple of Banshees get close here, that Overlord is blocking the entire vision of that building spire. Anyways, normally you rush up towards lair to get the Baneling speed going, but Reynor here is going straight into a spire. Okay. So, spire play is very, I don't know, hit or miss. It is not something we see all too often, although the top level Zergs do make it look quite strong. The more common strategy right now is Hydroling Bane into Lurkers, and that is something Reynor plays time and time again as well. Mutas, though, I guess it is something he can play very well because he is a fast player and he definitely does have the actions per minute to be able to pull it off. Normally with Muta play, at least, when you go for Mutaling Bane, we see Zerg players slipping somewhere. Like, in theory, it's a great strategy, but in practice, oftentimes you delay your Baneling speed, you delay your Evo chambers, you delay, you know, your just progression throughout the game. Mutas are fantastic if you're constantly moving them around and you're constantly trying to catch up to the opponent. But yeah, they're also a very micro-intensive unit, and it's definitely not a unit I recommend playing if you have less than like 300 average actions per minute, which is the case for like 99% of the player base. Actually, 99.999% of the player base. Mutas are a very tricky unit, but they can certainly get a lot of value over time if you control them well. So maybe this is Reynor's chance right here to... yeah, maybe catch the Terran player off guard a little bit, because I can imagine that Cure does not have a lot of practice against this. Now, he's gonna go for an attack that we see very frequently right here on this map. Yeah, he'll try, okay, and stim forward right now, get that Siege Tank into a good spot. Normally over here is where that Siege Tank is just amazing. Difficult for the Zerg player to break, and now we can start the dance here. Now, Baneling speed is on the horizon. Mutas are out at this point, okay? They may actually be used to try and get that Siege Tank. I love the fact, by the way, that the Hellions are over here. So say Zerglings would try to get a wrap around here, they would get roasted very quickly. Maybe the Mutas can be used for the counterattack, but there's already loads of Marines waiting over here as well. Missile turrets set up in a perfect position. Cure is, well, crossing his T's, dotting his I's. He is just looking incredibly solid, right? Like, he's not doing anything special. That's why it's so impressive to me. Like, he's not doing anything that really is out of the ordinary, and that is something we've never seen before. Now, this could be a good catch right here for Reynor. Never mind. Like, he's playing normal, right? He's playing standard. But he's just playing standard better than basically anybody else out there right now. Second factory coming up as well in the meantime on the other side of the map. Armory is done to go into the 2-2 upgrade, so those Hellions over there will be morphed into Hellbats. Now, this may be the moment, though, where Reynor decides to pull the trigger. Yeah, he's going to be able to collapse on this army here eventually, although a lot of the Marines do get saved. The reinforcing units, though, stim forward as well. There are a few Siege Tanks in the back. They're going to have to be brought right here to the front. So far, have these Mutas been great? I would honestly say, no, not really. They have done very little. The only thing they've really done is delayed these upgrades. And these upgrades are, well, significantly behind the Terrans. 2-2 has already been fired up right there for Cure. Which, if I am being critical, he probably could have started up ever so slightly earlier already. Especially the +2 attack. I think he had the resources for that earlier already. But anyways, yeah, Mr. Cure is going to continue the harassment here of these bases. And this hatchery certainly is going to go down. There are some units over here in the middle of the map. Okay, they're going to be able to grab some of the reinforcements, maybe? But honestly, not really. Maybe? Okay, this could be a prison over here for those SCVs. Depots get lowered. And they are going to be able to somewhat escape. Reynor trying to get as much damage done as possible. Apparently, we don't have our notifier right there on the left side of the screen. But 18 SCVs here have gone down in total. Not the end of the world, though. He can rebuild them pretty quickly. Okay, we're gonna have a dance here once again, but look at this engagement. How in the world do you take a good fight here as Zerg? While Terrans are more than comfortable playing the late game on this map, they're also really comfortable playing the mid game. And honestly also very comfortable playing the early game. Once again, this is something I've seen Cure do a couple times now. He decides to go for the planetary over here on the right side of the map. I really feel like the good location, the better location, is the one in the middle. But Cure is doing this consistently, where he's not actually taking that base as his fourth. Maybe that's because of lurker play I was thinking in the past, but there's definitely no lurkers here coming anytime soon. Anyways, Reynor is gonna have to clean this up, and apparently right now is when he pulls the trigger. He wants to collapse on top of this army from as many angles as possible. Of course, he's been making army here non-stop for a long time already. So in the end, I do think, yeah, he's gonna be able to clean this up pretty easily. But the question is, at what cost, right? He doesn't have good upgrades. He doesn't have a particularly good army. He doesn't have a particularly strong economy either. 4 bases have been secured. And Terran is now happy to start up that transition towards whatever they need. So apparently we're going to be going for both Widowmines and Thors. Well, at least one Thor here. The Thor is really good with his Javelin missiles against those Muta clumps. And so far, I am liking this position for Cure a lot. He's finished up 2-2. If he can start up 3-3 here pretty soon as well, his lead is only going to get bigger over time. In order for Zerg to go into 3-3 upgrades, they're going to have to go into a Hive as well. And while that is something Reynor could produce here, I think usually Mutaling Bane, you play it on Laratech for quite a while longer. And so far, I'm not really feeling too inspired by this Mutaling Bane style. There's +3. There's another Thor. There's the Infestation Pit in the 5th base. Reynor is forced to play catch-up right now. Now, if anybody can do it, though, I know that's a bit of a cliche thing to say, but if anybody can do it, genuinely, Reynor is the one. Here's that army again, though. This time around, no siege tanks in the mix, which is kind of cool, I guess. With the armies getting bigger over time, I guess Cure has decided, you know what, I need something that can reliably deal with the Mutas and make sure that all of those Lings and Banes get taken care of too, and splash damage from the Widowmines is just going to be a bit more effective. We are now getting to the point, though, exactly, where Mutas can start contesting those missile turrets, because there are so many of them. Siege tank could certainly be sniped as well, but we're just going to settle for the SCVs here for now. Quite a few workers have already gone down. Alright, Hydralisk then on the back of this. Now that's interesting. I guess this is Mutaling Bane into Lurker? Although that is still going to be a while away. 3-3 though is so scary here. Like Hive does start up here for the Zerg as well. For at least the next minute, Terran's not going to have an upgrade lead. So there's a chance that Reynor can actually clean all of this up. He's finishing up 2-2 research right now, hitting his opponent in the face right as that is the case, but okay, Cure decides to not really take that fight and step off creep. The Mutas, though, are starting to actually get some value now. Only 3 of them have gone down, and 28 SCVs have been killed. Keep in mind, Mutas can always come back to, well, fight at home as well. That is something that Cure needs to be a bit concerned of. I'm surprised that he's sitting out here on the creep for such a long time here. Yeah, I mean, it's nice and all when you can sort of control the Zerg here. That Widowmine was a traitor. The second Widowmine also not getting a lot of value. Guess it was actually the third. I didn't notice the explosion on the first one, but I highly doubt it got much done. This parking in the middle of the map here from Cure is good, but also very risky. Because we've already seen it a few times that Reynor is coming in from every angle, and suddenly this army gets destroyed. Anyways, the command center explosion has happened. Do we have a Ghost Academy yet? No. I guess because we're playing Mutaling Bane here, Terran is not going into a Ghost Academy. Or at the very least, they're not really thinking about it. I wonder if that's a mistake. Even against Mutas, honestly, you can still make Ghosts deal a lot of damage. Okay, these 2 command centers actually do not finish up. This one just needs its scaffolding removed, and it is. The one over here may actually be in some trouble, though. Yep, I think that one will be killed or... Okay, cancelled. Look at this, the production tab here. That's a very interesting set of upgrades. +1 missile, adrenal glands, and seismic spines. Not usually what we see. A huge Zergling run by over here, though. Cure, yeah, I think your plan has been a surprise for the earlier stages of this game, but Reynor is now reading you very well. Just constantly noticing that you're sitting in the middle of the map with basically all your army. And if you're sitting in the middle of the map with basically all your army, that means that your bases on the sides are going to be very exposed. So Reynor there ends up killing a load of SCVs at the third. He ends up killing a load of them as well over at this base on the right. Hatchery in the middle of the map still lives, and now lurkers are available. Okay. Those lurkers are going to be sick, especially when they have their ranged upgrade, Seismic Spines. Terran's not ready to deal with lurkers here. Now the Ghost Academy starts up, I don't think Cure was expecting mutas into lurkers here whatsoever. And honestly, I wasn't either. This is not a Terran army that's set up to deal with lurkers at all. Okay, and that means that the pacing of this game is going to be slowed down a bit, at least in theory. Apparently Cure is thinking the opposite though. He's like, you know what, maybe you have a couple lurkers, but you probably won't have much to defend me right here at home or defend against me. Muta's still going to town, by the way, on the other side of the map, just dealing with all of those missile turrets and then taking care of loads of those SCVs as well. Hatchery at the 12 o'clock position did get destroyed. Base here at the bottom though, maybe in a little bit of trouble. Reynor still just sniping as many workers as possible, but a reinforcing Thor here does eventually push them back. This army is going to try and continue, but now the lurkers are repositioned in a better spot. And okay, Cure is actually dealing with that really well. Yeah, normally as soon as lurkers hit the battlefield, Terrans decide to take the game a little bit slower, you know? Make sure to at least get a counter against those lurkers ready to go before they continue the aggression. But Cure is showing us, you know what, you really don't need that. As long as you can hit the opponent at multiple angles all at once. A couple Marines here are going to be forced back as well. Missile turret there helping out quite a bit. Yeah, double missile turret here. I don't think there's enough mutas to really deal with that. Cure keeps on darting on the edge of creep here. Dancing with his units' lives. This army, okay, is going to be forced to back off. Mutas and lurkers. What a composition. That's so funny to see. We never see mutas and lurkers at the same time on the production tab. Huh. Is it good? I honestly don't know. I think it can theoretically be quite good. Because lurkers technically deal with everything at home while the lurkers... Or, sorry, yeah, the lurkers deal with everything at home and then the mutas can go for the counterattacks, I guess. That is true at least until the Liberators and the Ghost hit the battlefield. Okay, drop in the main base here. Liberators here at the bottom of the map as well. Keep in mind that the Liberators are a little bit cheaper with the newest patch, but they're certainly not cheap. So losing them right there is nice, even though, well, 53 drones have actually gone down in this game. That's actually more than I realized. Hatchery here eventually is going to get destroyed as well, which I do love to see here. Terran's been pushing back and forth. They never really got this center base, I suppose, which kind of sucks for him, but overall, nothing really all too concerning here for our Terran player. Yeah, his economy is still good. He still has a lot of command centers, and now he has started up that Ghost transition. And in the end, okay, he attempted a Doom drop there. In the end, this map is still very good for late game Terran as well. So real quick, since we are getting to that point right now, Terrans in general mine... If they can mine half of their map, they will be able to win the game, most of the time. Their cost efficiency is just noticeable. So look at the resources lost right here on both sides. Terran just has, at the very least in a normal game, assuming they micro well, just like that, they should be able to have a more cost-efficient trade as the game goes on. So if Terrans can mine their side of the map, life is fantastic for them. And this map makes it quite difficult for the Zerg to steal one of their bases. So normally the bases that get stolen are the one over here, or maybe the ones up. It's all a little bit dicey. If the game goes on for a whole lot longer, those are the bases that are critical for the Zerg player to consider. Now, Cure though playing very aggressively here, now with the snipes from the low ground, trying to get rid of the lurkers, killing quite a few of those drones as well again in the process. I'm not sure, by the way, why my counter there on the left side is not showing. It's probably a replay-related issue. I highly doubt it's my computer because I haven't changed anything, but would have been nice to see the amount of drones there dying every once in a while. Either way, missile turrets now are going to be in some trouble, though. Yeah, these are +2 mutas with a whole lot of lurkers at home as well. I actually quite like the mutas here, guys. 22 mutas suddenly show up. Terran is not really set up to deal with all of this properly, and he's actually going to be marching some of his units back home. The planetary fortress is just going to go down. I mean, it's a very expensive harassment squad, right? Not quite as cheap as, say, like a big Ling Bane run-by, but I mean, you can still do those as well. +3 coming up right now for the mutas as well. And he actually catches the ghost. He catches the ghosts. Okay, that must have been like 4 or 5 goes going down. That's painful. Those units are by no means cheap, and it's not like Cura's got a lot of money in the bank here either. Okay, he's gonna try and chase away those mutas, and he will be able to pull that off. But he doesn't actually have that much money in the bank here. Yeah. Okay. So we're only really using the armor up, or sorry, the attack upgrades right here for the mutas. We're negating the armor here. Mostly because, well, mutas just harass, right? They're not really meant for fighting. They're meant for taking out things here and there and then continuing to fight elsewhere. If we are gonna transition towards Brute Lords here eventually, which is something that Reynor does, Brute Lord Infestor is very popular, although in this game there's really no way you can afford it at this point. Oh my god, the Lurker's actually just moving forward. What I'm saying is those Brutes would actually have way more attack upgrades than they ordinarily would in a game. Like, we never ever really see +3, +1 Brute Lords. That's painful, man. Speaking of painful though, Cure losing a lot of troops. Yeah, I don't think Cure knows entirely how to deal with this. Muta Lurker. It's a strange combination of units. And I don't think it's necessarily the strongest for Zerg either, but it is something that Terran doesn't really have a lot of practice against, right? Like, you barely ever see this. So I think Cure here is, well, doing the worst thing that a StarCraft 2 player can ever do. He's thinking while playing the game. I think his hatchery is slightly mispositioned, but anyways. Bailing roll-by here up north. Muta's in the main base. Is he paying attention over here? He is not! And that's painful. That's a lot of SCVs going down. Yep, just get whatever you can, dude. Mutas were creating a distraction, and Lurkers in the, well, meantime over here just shooting spines at whatever they can. Reynor is starting to take all of the bases around the map. Ling Bane with +2 missile on the production tab. We could still get +3 melee as well, which I do think at this point is probably worthwhile if we're gonna play this Ling Bane of a, yeah, this heavy of a Ling Bane style. Okay. So, what exactly should Cure do? Well, I think the first order of business is to stop losing stuff randomly. We're losing way too many things here. He could try and go for a big push, but against Lurkers, it's difficult to close out the game. He can certainly give it a try, though, but there's so many units right now available for the Zerg player who is accidentally catching a Terran army here on the move. Okay, Thor's trying their very best to get some value in, but I don't really like this move out. I really think what he should try and do is secure another base. Now, there is another push coming up north, and this is a nice catch right here by Reynor. He does scout this, which is important, but in the meantime, Reynor is already dealing with so much here of the Terran's army. That being said, though, those snipes are phenomenal. Oh, yes! Those ghosts are putting in a lot of work, and just their straight-up auto attacks are dealing with the mutas just fine. That was actually a very expensive set of losses. Cure, though, has been reduced to only 38 drones. Well, Terran drones, that is. While he is trying to deal with some of his opponent's economy as well, Reynor is significantly ahead there. But he's lost the base up north, and he's looking like he's gonna lose that base at the bottom as well. Nice squeezing in between the gas and the wall right there by Cure, trying his very best to negate as much of that splash damage and surface area as possible. Once again, look at this production tab. Hydras, Mutas, Lurkers, and Vipers. That is not normally what we see, mostly because it's very gas heavy, right? So we do need as much gas as possible. There's actually still some Vespene remaining over there in that gas geyser in the main base. Could be something that Reynor forgets about. As apparently it gets sniped a bit earlier on in the game, but we're going back into a lot of mutas here. Yeah, this is one of those unit compositions where you really do need an extra arm. And while this was a nice tucked away position, Cure decided to overstay his welcome there. He does get a decent trade, I suppose, but yeah, no, all of those units are gonna end up going down. Push over here at the front. Is it gonna be able to get that fourth? It will. Nicely done. Actually, I think that was the fifth base right here for Reynor, but at the very least the hatchery does fall. No planetary fortress right here for the Zerg. Can't even lift his hatchery, dude. Pathetic. All right. I actually wonder if it's mostly because of these bases here on the right side that, yeah, Zerg decided to go for it, right? Because normally these bases are very hard to access for the Zerg, right? When there's a planetary over here in the middle and there's a planetary here up north, those ground armies from Zerg have a very hard time harassing anything. So going into this base over here, tricky. Going into the base over here, pretty much impossible. But the mutas have this, well, beautiful thing that allows them to fly around. How many mutas have gone down in this game, though, do you think? 46. Mutas as the backbone to a Zerg army. Very interesting. Now, I didn't think Cure was actually going to be too successful fighting here a few minutes ago, but he once again proved me wrong. He took out basically that entire Zerg army with that overextension from Reynor here earlier. Now, Reynor is going to be able to grab quite a few units. That is really nice for him. And then he also sniped that hatchery up north, right? Plus, of course, he got that base at the bottom after Reynor lost his entire army. Now, Reynor had a lot of money in the bank. He was forced to smash the piggy bank, though, and he's now basically spent everything that he's got on the units that he's got right now. But all things considered, I like this position right now a lot better for Cure than I did a few minutes ago. A few minutes ago, things looked quite desperate for him, but now he's secured another mineral line, and yeah, he's apparently feeling confident enough to go into additional command center production here as well, which I honestly would prefer seeing some units here instead, but we're gonna go into that ghost mech-based army. At the very least, that's slowly where we're headed to. Mutas in the main base, taking care of whatever they can. Infestors in the meantime at home. How in the world is Reynor hotkeying all of this, man? He's decided, you know what? A hotkey or an army that requires like 5 hotkeys to control properly normally, I'm gonna add a 6th. I'm gonna add mutas in the mix as well. And then, you know, obviously the queens need a hotkey too. The hatcheries need a hotkey. This is probably like an 8 hotkey Zerg army here that we see moving around. It looks pretty straightforward, but it may be that he's got some of these units clumped together though. Just means that he needs to be careful not accidentally overextending. Muta's still flapping their little wings, trying to get an angle. Not really going to happen, though. Okay. So far, all of the bases taken here by the Zerg are the ones that are, quote-unquote, his. Alright, so if you draw, like, a line here, through the center of the map, somewhat like that, the left side is going to be the Zergs, the right side is going to be the Terrans. If Reynor wants to win this game, assuming Cure is going to be able to take these bases, and he's aiming for it right now, Reynor's gonna have to mine one of those bases from the Terran. So this expansion up here is difficult to break for the Zerg. If Terran gets some static defense going, a line of siege tank, a sensor tower, planetary fortress up here, Ghost in a good position, this is not an easy position to break for the Zerg player. He's gonna try and steal the base here at the bottom. Okay, of course, while Terran's all the way up here, they're not really able to split their army very effectively and also have it at the bottom of the map in the meantime. Mutas once again just trying to deal with whatever they can, going after all the missile turrets. How many missile turrets have they killed? 16, that's actually a lot, yeah. 57 Mutas though have gone down here. 8 Thors as well, I wonder if Liberators would be a good choice. Not exactly sure. Liberator air-to-air, when they're properly upgraded, does deal a lot of damage, but I don't think Cure really wants to run that risk. Yeah, normally Terrans have like a number in the back of their heads, right? They're like, okay, if I'm playing against Lurkers, I want to have this many Ghosts. If I'm playing against Mutas, I want to have this many Thors. But the unit composition that Reynor is playing right here doesn't allow Cure to really make the units that he's wanting to make, because, you know, there are so many different varieties, so many different flavors of Zerg that he needs to be careful he doesn't get carried away with one unit or the other. This is still a very mobile Zerg army, at least compared to the Terran. The Terran is split up really nicely though. Yeah, he's starting to push forward. Obviously, if Cure can mine out even just half of this base, that would be amazing for him. Infestors right there, not going to happen. Mutas right now do show up north, but +3/+3 Marines hanging out here. What a game. What a game. Yep. We have now gone over 600 average actions per minute. Just play faster, guys. Obviously, this base has been denied as well, at least from some of its mining. And Reynor is taking this base. I actually really would love to see a drone transfer from that base to this one, just because this one is a lot harder to mine. Terran currently seems to be distracted, or at the very least not too focused on trying to shut down the economy here in this base. Yeah, so he actually transferred about half the drones. I think that's the right thing to do. Mutas once again going into the main base, harassing wherever they can. That is a lot of missile turrets though, but the Mutas, you know, they have a little bit of HP. They don't quite die super easily. At the very least, they're gonna trigger some of those Marines and Marauders to go back into the main base, and it slowed down the advancement here, this fight up north. Okay, so now Reynor is taking one of the bases of the Terrans. And that's big. Oh, fungal growth over here as well, together with lurkers and Ling Bane. Siege tanks, though, leapfrogging forward. They're trying to get in range right here of whatever they can. And I do believe that eventually Terran is going to be able to shut down this base. But Reynor's going to try to mine it as long as possible. That said, though, Mutas, okay, they may actually find these siege tanks over here. Yeah, he's just going to try and take whatever he can, and I honestly don't mind it. That is 4 siege tanks, I think, going down here in total. Absolutely massive. There's a couple of liberators in the mix, too, by the way. Okay. Is Reynor going to collapse on top of this location as well? That planetary fortress is going to be difficult to deal with. Corruptors added into the mix, by the way. Did we go Greater Spire? Oh, yeah, we did. Okay. Greater Spire coming up. Yeah, so apparently eventually we are going to get to Infestor Broodlord, but nice movement right here by Cure, of course. Getting rid of this base is really, really nice. Yep, still a lot of money remaining. Command Center fired up immediately. I think that's really nice. If Cure at the same time could have tried dealing with that fight over, or that bottom base rather here, the one at the 6 o'clock, that would be amazing. Really think we should try and shut down this base over here, but Reynor did secure the low ground with quite a few lurkers, and that Overseer here providing vision of the ramp. Okay. Cure fighting back from a pretty sick deficit, and he's getting there, honestly. Right now, yeah, he's getting there. He's maxed out. Well, he can max out again, and he's gonna start getting some money in the bank. He could easily max out if he decided to produce out of all of his barracks, but I guess he's just purposely not adding on too many Marines anymore. He's just slowly trickling to a max out, which is fine. If you're not gonna go for a big attack here, okay, maybe split up half your units, I don't mind it. Look at this location though, man. Curious, yeah. I guess the way he's trying to deal right here with all of those mutas is by just making a ton of missile turrets. But missile turrets are by no means free. Okay. Now Cure has started going after one of the bases that is normally his, right? So Reynor did mine it for quite a while, but how in the world is he gonna prevent this base from going down? I think he's just giving up on it. Broodlords in the meantime up north though, and this is the first time that Cure is gonna see them. Keep in mind, these are +3, +2 Broodlords, so they actually deal a ton of damage. The Broodlings themselves are fully upgraded. So the Broodlings, they benefit from melee upgrades from the Evo Chamber, as well as carapace upgrades from the Evo Chamber. But the impact damage from the Broodling initially is then, you know, from the attack upgrades from the Spire, which deals a ton of damage. And then, of course, the armor on the Broodlord itself is from the carapace upgrades in the Spire. Broodlord, probably the most complex unit, together with the Swarm Host, as far as upgrades go. But anyways, just know that these units, they pack a punch. You know what? The Southern Broodlords do seem to be able to go through this. In the meantime, though, the fight up north, yeah, maybe that one's losing, but this fight down south here is looking really good for Cure. Reynor actually taking care of that. He immediately rebuilt the hatchery to the left of this as well, which is really lovely work. Okay, hatchery over here, though, is going to get destroyed, but that one was mostly already mined out. Reynor still with a ton of money in the bank. Cure at this point is basically maxed. And he's apparently gonna settle on his final units here. It's gonna be Thors and Ghosts. Thors and Ghosts, though, I mean, they're good. But Zerg can just make Ling Bane against that, right? Like, it's such a delicate dance. You don't just want to worry about this composition of Zerg that is available right now, but also the one that Reynor could remax with in just a couple of seconds. And if suddenly, you know, the battlefield is hit with like, I don't know, 150 Zerglings or something, it's very, very difficult for Cure to actually deal with that. 54 larvae available. Reynor can remax with whatever he likes. Muta's still going to town here. 604 average actions per minute. That is over 10 buttons a second. Okay. That's the end of the Mutas. The era for the Muta is over. 83 of them have valiantly fought in this game, and I do believe that they were worthwhile. Somewhat. Most of the time. Okay. So here we continue once again. Cure has now secured that base that was mined previously by the Zerg. And he's going to try and re-secure this base over here as well. Now, Zerk is trying to build a hatchery here at the exact same moment, which is always funny to see. Not going to happen, however, but still funny to see, of course. Zerkling's trying to see if they can find an angle in, but not going to happen. Okay. Reynor could definitely start harassing this base here at the bottom, though. But he also knows that if he commits too much of his army down south, this base up north is going to be in trouble. Plus, Terran's then going to be taking this expansion over here. Now, suddenly, this looks like a much better army. Oh my god. To deal with Brute Lords. That being said, 61 Banelings on the production tab. Reynor is ready to bring the fight here to the Terran, but it's going to be an uphill battle, literally. This is a very dangerous fight. Okay, there's a Viper hitting a Blinding Cloud. Is he gonna commit here? He's thinking about it, man. The Banelings are gonna be hunting down as many of these units as possible. Can they get on top of the ghost? Massive fungal growths do shut down a lot of that Terran army, and Cure's supply is plummeting. Are there enough Brute Lords in the sky to actually destroy all of those Thors? I believe there are, but Reynor needs to be careful. The Terran reinforcements are gonna come out pretty quickly as well, but he did take a banger of an engagement. I do not believe that Cure thought that Zerk was gonna be brave enough to fight that uphill battle there, because he was essentially pushing into an entrenched Terran position like that. I don't even know where the fungal growth came from, man. Like, I didn't even see the infester, but suddenly those ghosts couldn't run anymore, and those, oh my god, those Banelings put in so much work. Reynor's angry now. 32 additional Banes have come up. He's already maxed out once again. There's another fungal growth. And the Brute Lords are packing a punch. Yeah, maybe this could be a bit of a miscalculation as well. These are pretty much maxed out Brutes, right? They hit like absolute trucks. Here come more Lings and Banes moving forward, trying to just get whatever he can get here. Denying this base is absolutely critical. Cure does not have enough income to really sustain this amount of Zerk units that are constantly coming at him. He's got very little money coming in other than this base right here at the bottom, but that one was half mined by Reynor, so there's not that much juice remaining. Ghost though, do end up getting some good snipes in. Trying their very best. Okay, and the Brute Lords, well, they're gonna get some reinforcements here. What a fight. What a fight. Now Reynor's gonna, try and finish off these minerals here. Not only does he keep this base alive, he of course also gets that one over there. Finally, Cure is thinking about going for some harassment once again. Mostly though, because he does not have an answer against the Brute Lords. So those Marines and Marauders, they may as well be used elsewhere. I don't think that this base should have been allowed to mine for as long as it has been mining. I understand that this has been a very tricky game here for Cure, and that there's a lot of things going on, but I think that that base has been too free. I mean, he did harass it in the past, and he did kill it, now for the second time, I believe, but for the most part, that base was unharmed, even though it was very susceptible to a drop and Liberator harassment and all the rest of it. Okay, now Reynor is knocking on the front door of Cure. He's also smashed his bank though. So he does not actually have any money anymore. He still has a good amount of income, but not a ton. Cure trying to spend his money on whatever he needs. And I think, yeah, this is going to be the fight. Reynor right here decides to pull the trigger. He catches a lot of those Terran units in a pretty unfortunate spot. That Blinding Cloud is going absolutely nowhere. But there are so many Brute Lords still up in the air. And again, I just want to emphasize, man, 3-3 Brute Lords do not mess around. And that's mostly because of those Mutas. So even though the Mutas, GG is called, even though the Muta harassment, I questioned it. If anything though, having those Muta upgrades carry you in the later stages of the game is incredibly valuable. Amazing game of StarCraft 2. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you really enjoyed it and you want to watch more, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get notified as soon as future videos go live. Today, I also want to give a special shout out to the Patreon supporters. Thank you very much for your generosity. If you're interested in supporting me as well, you can head on over to patreon.com/LowkoTV. For now though, have a great rest of your day. Don't forget to smile. And I'll see you once again in the next one.